Joining us right now to go more in depth on this issue, Dick Morris, former advisor to President Bill Clinton, and a guy who really knows how these types of issues can be one thing today, but drastically change the political landscape in the future. Dick, real quickly, I want to get your take on all this. There's been a lot of back and forth now. Obviously, there's a tragedy here. Where does the conversation go from here now as a result of this?
Well, I think that part of the subtext of the Obama election was racial healing. There was a feeling that by electing an African-American president, we would establish that the U.S. had overcome racism and put our unfortunate past behind us. And now this belies that. I think that the whole atmosphere has been poisoned by the unfortunate fact that there will never be a trial in Ferguson. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think Wilson should have been indicted.
Right.
But I think there was no substitute for actually explaining to people, like in the O.J. trial, exactly what the evidence was and exactly where it led. And as a result, whites are largely convinced that Wilson is innocent and blacks are largely convinced he's guilty, whereas a show of the evidence would have changed much of that perception. And I think that these kinds of retaliation can be expected, unfortunately. And I think we're on the verge of a tremendous racial conflict in this country. Totally the opposite of what people had in mind when Obama was elected.
And you talk about this a lot in your book, the division that this presidency has created, and still time to get that book as a Christmas gift. Power Grab, of course, available on Amazon.com right now. But getting back to what we just heard there from the president of the NAACP, this issue here, you mentioned how we're on the brink of something very uproarious, perhaps. It could be dangerous. But what do you see? You see escalation here, not de-escalation.
Let me quote my great friend Hillary Clinton. I just watched Homeland, the show last night,
right.
And on the promo for it, the lead-in, they have her saying, "You can't have snakes in your backyard and expect them only to bite your neighbors." And Obama cannot persist in this policy of atomizing the country into blacks, Latinos, gays, and single white women and environmentalists, and then just saying, I'm going to appeal to those special interest groups as special groups. And that atomization, that breaking apart of our country, ultimately leads to this kind of consequence.
This is also an issue here something you want to talk about, a new fault line in President Obama with his immigration policy. I'm sure there was some thought that this would help unify the Latino community, but you say it's doing the opposite. Explain.
Well, there's a fascinating poll by Gallup a week ago that really points to a tremendous new development in our politics. They asked Latino voters, citizens, do you approve of Obama's amnesty? And 75% of the Latinos who were citizens who were born abroad approved. But only 51% of those who were born here approved and 42 disapproved. So the huge difference. So, and three-quarters of the citizens of Latino descent were born here, and a higher percentage of the vote. And it may be that the Latino community on immigration is being represented by the relatively shrill voices of the advocates who speak really only for those who are foreign born, and that those who are born here who are in the process of assimilating don't see it that way. It also is fascinating because everybody's asking, will the Latinos be like the blacks, a dedicated Democratic core constituency for the rest of creation? And this says no. It says that once they're born here and you get into the second and third generation, they behave much more typically like Germans, Irish, and Italians and merge into the fabric of the country seamlessly.
So again, as some people have predicted or claimed, this move was done in part so that the Democratic Party could have more voters. And you say, again, that might backfire on
I think it's backfired enormously with the less than college white vote, because they're getting that the reason their incomes are stagnant and unemployment is still high is because of the competition from immigration. But it may not even deliver the Latino vote in the numbers he wants.
Interesting. Another interesting thing we're going to talk about right now, some stuff going on in the banking industry, not necessarily just here in the United States, but also overseas, that could have an impact on pension funds all over the world. We're going to be right back. Dick Morris joins us for more of the conversation here on America's Forum.